Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. Back in the studio after a 2-week hiatus is Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me back, Dean. You had some stellar talent here, so I'm just glad you got me back.
Yeah, well, you know, it was...
you have me back.
Yeah, it was, you know, it's a step in a different direction, but we won't say better or worse. We'll just say a different direction. And so here's the question that we're going to ask today. Why do bad things happen to good people? We've talked about that before, but today we're going to talk about a gentleman who met some unfortunate circumstances only to figure out why just a little while later. And then in Dean's Thoughts today, we're going to talk about how we put limitations on ourselves that, well, they may be unreasonable.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. You know, we started a few weeks ago presenting our Run for God partners, and this week's going to be no different. We got a supporter of Run for God, and I love the name. It's Trinity Disposal. This is a good friend of mine, Hunter Williams. You know, Trinity Disposal is kind of your go-to disposal company for Whitfield County, your trash service. Mm-hmm. Trinity offers weekly residential trash collection as well as commercial front-end and load dumpsters. You know, they're very detail-oriented and they have excellent customer service. They're the ones that actually pick up my trash at my house. And Hunter's always great. If it's snowing or storming or something and not going to be able to come by, they send out text and emails and let everybody know. So they're, you know, we're called to take pride in everything we do, and Hunter does that with his business. So if you're in the Dalton or Whitfield County area, go check them out at Trinity Disposal.
Amen. You know, we've always talked about, when I used to be in business all the time, we always used to talk about which person would you miss more, the CEO or the janitor?
Yeah.
And there was never any question about that. So,
right.
Yeah, taking pride in what you do is important no matter what you do.
Exactly.
So you went down to Florida last week to watch Lane, didn't you?
I did.
How did that go?
It went good. You know, he was down there for about 10 days, had 3 races in 10 days' time. If you don't know, Lane is a triathlete. And on the week that we weren't there, this was the first time I had watched Lane or not been there to watch Lane racing in the States. And that was tough.
I bet.
But thanks to technology nowadays, one of his female teammates, she live streamed his race. She wasn't racing that day, so we got to watch it online. And it just so happens the first race he raced, he won, and he actually earned his pro card.
Wow!
And I wasn't there for that, which was super hard. He raced the next day. Did pretty good the next day. Had a little snafu with his seat. His seat actually came off the bike. So he did
snafu.
A lot of the last lap on the bike with no seat, which if you've ever ridden bikes, that's hard to do. It's hard to stand up. And then he raced this past weekend in Sarasota, Florida. I think he wound up taking 7th there. Didn't come out of the water where he wanted to, missed that front backpack. But yeah, it was a great 2 weeks of racing. It was just awesome to be back to racing. You know, we spent 2020 just wondering, are we going to race? Are we not going to race? Most of the races were canceled, and it was just great to, number one, be in the Florida weather.
Yeah.
And then just to have, you know, it feels like our country's coming back to life again. I know there's several areas that aren't quite there yet, but a lot of areas are, and that's just it's awesome to see.
Yeah, I was watching some of the live stream, and it looked like the weather there in Florida was really nice.
No, man, it was 75, 78 degrees, sunshine, not a cloud in the sky. So, yeah, it was nice.
That's awesome. Because there's a lot of people, just last week, I remember I was reading about somebody who's there under like 3 feet of snow right now.
Yeah, actually, some of Lane's buddies, they were going back home to feet of snow. Some of his friends up in Wisconsin. Yeah. And I don't think they were looking forward to that.
I'm sure.
We come back to rain, which is bad, but coming back to a couple feet of snow wouldn't be any fun.
Much worse. Yeah. So we've got the Run for God 5K coming up pretty soon. What do people need to know about that?
Number one, it's a trail race. We love the trail. You and I actually built the trail, but it's not a trail race like many people think of. It's not like a stump jump type of race, single track. We built this trail for our cross country teams around here, and it's actually the home course of a lot of our cross country teams. But it's very smooth. It's grass and mulch. It's moderately rolling. Nothing crazy. You go to some of these trail races, which you conventionally think of, and you're doing some crazy things. That's not the case here. It's very smooth. You don't really have to worry about your footing like you do at a lot of trail races. So it's great. We're putting the race on. We are not going to be spacing everybody out at the start line if you don't want to. But we are going to have the option for people to distance if they want to do that. So it's going to kind of be a hybrid. Last year we did this race, and we were very conscious about keeping everybody spaced out. We're kind of pulling back from that just a little bit, but we are going to have the option there. If you do want to stay distance, you can do that. So, we're just hoping everybody listening comes out. It's going to be a great event. It's the perfect time of year to be running, and we hope everybody joins us.
Well, we got a lot of Run Club folks coming.
We do. If you're part of Run Club, we've got a little bit different experience for you. We're going to have some get-togethers. We're going to have a Saturday night barbecue dinner, which I'm looking forward to. I love barbecue.
Yeah.
I think some of the people coming here are looking forward to that. But we got a lot of Run Club members coming to join us. We're going to tell stories. We're going to get to know each other, and we're just going to have a good time. And if you hang around for Sunday, we're all going to go to church together. So it's going to be a cool weekend.
That's awesome. I was communicating with somebody just last night or this morning about that she had sprained her ankle. She can't run the race, but she still wants to come. Wow. So that's pretty cool to see folks that they just want to be here and be around people.
She can walk the race.
She can do
she
whatever.
Wants to do that, yeah.
Yep, whatever. I told her she could volunteer, too.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, we need that.
Yeah. So here's another Facebook post. We started this several weeks ago, and this one is much simpler than the ones I've read in the past, and that's what I like about this one. It's from Mary Pavluk Priolo. I'm not Mary. I'm so sorry, but I've messed up probably both of your names there. But I can say Mary.
Right.
And she says, 24 down, 132 to go, week 8 in the bag, ran a total of 1 hour this week, 3 20-minute stretches. Never thought I would ever do that, but here I am. Philippians 4:13.
I've seen a lot of these type of posts, and that's what's incredible is to see the number of people out there who are doing something they never thought they could do.
Yeah.
I've got some family doing this program right now, and it's just this is where Run for God comes to life. You see it come to life in people, and that's really encouraging to see. It's really not anything you and I are doing. Mm-hmm. That we get a lot of thank yous, and this is changing my life, but we're not doing this.
Yeah.
These people in the program are doing this with the help of God.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing something they never thought they could do, and that's what gets me out of bed every day. Is hearing the stories like this and seeing what something as simple as running can do in a person's life, and it's so encouraging to see.
Amen. And she says 24 down, 132 to go. So as difficult as this was for her, and as excited as she is here, she's looking forward too.
Yeah.
Like I've got another finish line way down the road that I plan to get to.
I'm sure she's one of those that has this written on her bathroom mirror.
Yeah.
If I was guessing.
Yeah, it's great to see all these posts that are full of emotion. A lot of them are. A lot of them are telling really personal stories and stuff. But I like this matter of fact, just here's what it is. Here's what I'm doing. Here are the facts, and the facts only.
And what about the jump pictures? Angie Hawkins has started something.
She did.
And we're getting challenged pretty regular now to do our jump picture. I posted a GIF of one that I thought people might think was me. I got called out, and it's not me. But But yeah, and Rebecca actually did a jump split the other day. Did you see that?
I didn't see that one.
She did the cheerleader, like where you jump and you touch your toes, and I would break my back if I did that.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. I'm really worried about trying to leave the ground. You should be, because I've had
last time you left the ground, it didn't turn out good.
That's right. So, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, and I'm trying to think of a spectacular way to do it, or some cool setting at least.
Probably in front of the whole run club group, the night after Run at the Mill or the 5K.
We could absolutely do it there. Yeah.
You got a mouse in your pocket.
Come on. If one can do it, both can do it. Come on now. All right. We had a trivia question last week, and it was this. There is a group of people from the Copper Canyons of Mexico who are known for their running prowess. What is the name of the group, and what was the name of the book that made them exponentially more widely known? Did you know this one?
I did.
The Tarahumara Indians of the Copper Canyon and the High Sierra Mountains. The book is called Born to Run.
Yeah, I've never read the book, but I've read quite a bit about the Tara. How do you say it?
Tarahumara. Yeah.
Tarahumara. Yeah, I've read quite a bit about them, but I've never read that book.
Yeah, it's a fascinating book because he weaves in some factual stuff about minimalist running along with this story of this tribe, and it's really fascinating the way that the book is written. Very, very well done, I would say. There's another name for them. If you go locally, they don't call them Tarahumaras locally. They call them Raramuri, if I'm saying that right. I think that's pretty close. And those folks, they're indigenous to that area. They've been there for forever. Not even sure where they came from, but much of Chihuahua, Mexico is taken up by this group, or most of this group is in Chihuahua, Mexico, excuse me. They think that they number between 50 and 70,000 people. It's really hard to tell. That's kind of foreign to us in the United States. We think, well, we should know how many there are. Mm-hmm. But these folks are living in cliffs and in caves and places where it's not so easy to go door to door and take a census.
They haven't filled out their census papers.
No, they haven't. And these folks, they're still known to run great distances. As a matter of fact, a lot of them will migrate each year, and sometimes they'll do that in a running fashion. They still live among those cliffs and caves. That Rarumuri means those who run fast. So just the root of their name is all about running, and so they've always been known as that. And they run in these things called, another word that's hard to pronounce, huarachis.
Is it not huarachis?
No, it's huarachis is the right way to say this. It looks like huarachis.
Well, I'm from the South, so I think it's huarachis here.
Yeah. Either way, I remember when Nike came out with a shoe. I think it was Nike. They came out with a shoe by this name.
See, I thought they were the huarachis.
Several years ago. I don't think they have them anymore, do they?
I don't know, but I remember those. That's why that name stuck out in my head.
Yeah.
I guess I've just been saying that wrong all this time.
It looks like huarachis, yeah. But anyway, it's minimalist footwear. It looks like sandals.
Yeah.
And this is something that just popped up. It's funny how God puts these things together, right? Because I'm just looking at, I don't even remember what I was looking through, but I saw this little video of, I know you like to watch the show Shark Tank. I like Shark Tank. And it was showing the 5 companies that Shark Tank turned down that turned out to be the biggest companies. One of them was a company who made these minimalist shoes that look just like. I saw the picture online of the shoes that the Raramari use, and then I saw the picture of these.
The Shark Tank shoes?
These Shark Tank shoes. They look identical.
Really?
I mean, they're almost the exact same thing. So,
cool side fact. You know what the number one product is that Shark Tank turned down?
Ring
doorbell.
Ring doorbell. Yep.
Yeah. That guy has actually been back on Shark Tank as a shark.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
You know, they messed up on that one.
Yeah. They're all kicking themselves, I guess, after that one. These folks have been known to run 200 miles at a time, and they hunt their food down by just wearing it out. So they'll run down birds, big birds, and they'll run after them and chase them down until they just wear them out and they can't fly anymore.
That's crazy.
That is amazing. And they play this running game where they kick a ball. It's I guess it's a little bit like soccer, but the ball's not like a soccer ball. But they kick this ball and they have to keep it going, and then they do a relay where they kick it to the next person, and the next person takes it on, and they do these relays. And the women do a little bit something similar, except instead of using a ball, they have these hoops, and these hoops, they roll it. They have like a stick, and a stick is like a couple of feet long, and they use a stick to roll this hoop along. It's really interesting looking. So they play these games, but again, there's running involved in these things, and that's what they're known for.
Yeah.
They eat a lot of plant-based food too. Less than 5% of their diet is meat-based, and so here's the most interesting thing I think about their diet is that recently some of their folks have been exposed to more of a, let's say, today's traditional diet, and guess what's happened? They're suddenly becoming sicker.
Really?
Yeah, they've introduced disease that they never saw before, and some people feel like it's because of the food that they're eating. So very, very interesting. If you haven't read Born to Run, it's by a guy named Christopher McDougall. He's got some talks online too about it too. He's an interesting guy, very good speaker as well as a writer. So go check out Born to Run if you're looking for a good book to read that's just interesting. So we're on the couch to marathon. We've got folks. We mentioned that Facebook post that's looking forward to that marathon finish line, and we talked about the 5K folks, and somewhere in between there's this group that's headed toward the marathon. So
yeah, and I think it's important to mention that, you know, while we're talking about specific weeks and the 5K challenge or the marathon challenge that a lot of people are doing, if you're tuning in to this for the first time and you're a member of Run Club, you don't have to jump in where we're at. The beauty of what we're doing right now is we're creating this content and archiving it, so it's there for years to come. So if you decide, you may be listening and think, man, I would like to do that marathon challenge, but I'm a little late to the game. No, you're not. You can go back and you can start at week 1, right where everybody else listening started, and you just simply need to count back roughly a year from whatever marathon you want to do, and you may be on the couch right now. This program will get you there. So that's important that we say that, because a lot of times people will tune in and hear us talking about week whatever, not realizing that you can start this at any point. And so if you're listening, go check it out. It's as well as the 5K. You know, you may have a 5K that you want to train for and you've never run in your life. All the content is on Run Club, and it's there for you to go in and download and listen to, and you may have a group, you may have some friends in your community that you want to do it with. But how is the Couch to Marathon going? It's going awesome. Yeah. You know, many people listening know that I'm doing this with everybody. I took a little hiatus from running, and so I started back with everybody. I did my 23-minute run. I started those this week, and it's going great. This is actually my buddy that's doing this with me. He brought this to my attention a few weeks ago. This is the first time that I've ever been through this program.
Huh.
And I had never thought about that. You know, when we wrote this, I was an established runner. I was running a lot, so I had never actually done step-by-step. I did, but not out of a need. Well, now it's a need. I have to do this along with everybody else, or I'm going to wind up hurt. Just like we say, don't jump ahead. So I'm going along with everybody, and it's absolutely doable. I can say that from being the person who hadn't run in a while. You know, maybe you're out there and you've never run. This is for you too. It's challenging. Yeah. But it's supposed to be. Yeah. And so it's going awesome. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see the excitement from everybody else on the Run Club group. That page, that group just keeps getting better and better. It does. So much excitement on there, and you know, if you were joining this club just to be part of that group, that's worth it. Totally. Absolutely.
Totally worth it. Absolutely. As always, we're proud to be sponsored by the world's greatest digital music platform, J Radio.
As a mom, I want to make sure we choose a cereal that's not entirely derived from sugar. Their car seats have to be nationally CPS certified, and their first car has to have every possible safety feature known to man. I just want to do my best to make sure that they're safe. One thing I don't have to worry about is the content they hear on J Radio. Not only do they love the music, but I know it's only going to be a positive message that I would approve of. Now, if I could just figure out how to get my youngest from sticking everything up his nose.
Sign up at jradio.com and download the new J Radio app in your app store.
All right, we're back. And remember that you can send messages to dean@runforgod.com. You got a question about running? You got a question about training? You got a question about the Couch to Marathon program? Whatever question you have, you can send those to dean@runforgod.com. You don't know about us, again, go to runforgod.com or runforgodrunclub.com to learn more. We just talked about that, and there's so many things out there that make this club worth joining. And we want to hear your story. We are about to share a story about somebody, and this one's a little less than what we do conventionally, but similar in a lot of ways as well. But we want to hear your story. So you can go to runforgod.com or runforgodrunclub.com, and you can submit that story. And we have had a couple of folks share their story, actually 3 different people who have shared their story live. And you can do that as well. If you can make it to Dalton, Georgia, and you would like to, we'd love to have you. And Mitchell, he gets real cranky when he gets out of the studio for just a week. But
no, I love. I listened to Rebecca's story yesterday. She was on here 2 weeks ago, and so at the time we're listening to this, I actually listened to her story yesterday. I mean, I think you're an incredible storyteller. We hear that all the time. You've got a voice that people can listen to when you're telling their story. But you can't beat somebody coming in here and telling their story live. I mean, the most comments we get are from the episodes where, like Angie came in and told hers, and Rebecca and Riley. Those are the ones where we get the most comments, is because you can hear the emotion behind it. Mm-hmm. And you and I can't do that for somebody. So yeah, if you're have the ability to come in studio and tell your story, because like I said, your story is impacting people.
Yeah.
As vanilla as you may think it is, or as embarrassing as you may think it might be, our stories impact people for the good. God uses our stories. The devil wants to keep us silent. Yeah. The devil won't want us to tell our stories. But it's proven. We've proven that these stories, no matter how they are, can change and reach in and touch somebody's life.
That's right. Well, have you ever had something bad happen and wondered, what could God possibly do with that?
All the time.
Well, it happened in this next story. And so this is called Why Do These Things Happen? And this was a little bit different than your normal story. This was just sent to me in a package. Mm-hmm. And I got some things that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. Actually, I'm going to tell you about them now. This penny here, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see I'm holding up this penny with a cross punched out of the middle of it. And I got these from a guy named Bill Silvers. Mm-hmm. So this is the handwritten letter that I got with that. It says, Dear Dean, it's never too late to start running. I ran my first 5K race in April 2020. I am 82 years old. I have registered for the 5K race Run for God on April 10th, 2021. I would like to furnish the poem with the penny with the cross, or just the penny with the cross, for the 5K runners in April. Please pray about this and let me know. Have a blessed day. Bill Silvers, Run for God club member. So Bill is volunteering to provide some of these pennies for folks in the race. And so I think that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool story, and it's a pretty cool thing. There's a poem that goes along with it. And it's cool. So he also sent with that a written story. And so this is his story.
And so all this was, let me pause you.
Yeah.
This was all handwritten.
Yes. Well, The story was printed out from an iPad, but the letter was handwritten.
Yeah, you just don't hear that anymore.
No.
That's we get a few of these type letters, and most of the time they're from people in prison.
Yeah.
Reaching out to us, and usually when I see a handwritten letter come in, and it's because I guess the prisons don't allow computers or printers and things like that. So yeah, that's a dying art that I love to see it when it comes to. I'd like to see the letter he sent you.
I do too. It was a beautiful Sunday morning. I was 0.04 of a mile from the finish line. I was mostly walking, my third 5K race. I tripped and fell. I went down with my face hitting the edge of a paved road just above the eyebrow. The medics arrived in minutes. They stopped the bleeding and wrapped a 6-inch gauze bandage around my head. The stitches came later in the ER. I finished the race. As I was crossing the finish line, the race director saw me. She was in the middle of her award presentation. She stopped what she was doing and called me up front. She, along with all the other runners, lifted me up in prayer, praying for healing and a quick recovery. Prayer works. I had a very special race coming up in 2 weeks. It was the Run for God 5K race in Dalton, Georgia. I ran that race. I trained and ran 8 more races during the summer. Since I believe that everything happens for a reason according to God's plan and purposes for our lives, I had to ask the question, why did I trip and fall? My purpose for running the 5K races was to make people aware of the importance of praying for the doctors, nurses, and medical personnel on the front line fighting for COVID-19. My pastor and friend, Graham Arp, helped me put together a bumper sticker to share. We chose Matthew 25:36. I was sick and you cared for me, for the scripture on the sticker. We distributed them to hospitals and, with the help of race directors, to the people who were running the races that I was running. We distributed over 8,500 bumper stickers during the summer. So why did I trip and fall? Well, I already knew the answer. I became prideful. I took my eye off the original goal that God had put in my heart. I was running to show everyone just how fast I could run the race. I learned my lesson the hard way, and I never tripped or fell again. On the plus side of the story, I came in first in my age category in every race. Did I forget to mention that I was the only one in my age category? Laughing out loud. Bill Silvers.
That's a great story.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And he's how old? 80?
He's 82. Ran
82
his first
years.
race.
So for everybody out there listening who says, I'm too old to start running, let me present Bill Silvers.
Yeah.
A guy like this will take away a lot of our excuses.
Yes, he will.
Even for those of us who aren't 82. Great story.
And after he tripped and fell, wound up with stitches in his head. I've got pictures, which I will share in the video.
Yeah.
I've got pictures of this, and I mean, he gashed his head open pretty good. And then he went back and was running another race 2 weeks later.
Well, he got up and he finished that race.
He finished that race.
He said, just bandage me up. I'll be okay.
He's 82.
I know. That's
every
insane.
Excuse, yeah. And let me say this about being 82, because this brings to mind something else. My grandfather was saved at the age of 84.
Wow.
He made fun of my grandmother every time she went to church during all of those years. She died, and he was on his own for a little while and lived with my father for a little while. And my father actually talked with him a lot, and he came to know Christ before he died at 84 years old.
Wow.
So it's never too old to start running. It's never too old to find Christ.
No.
So have you ever tripped and fallen?
I have.
Yeah.
Probably the worst trip and fall I've ever had. I was running with a buddy, Keith Burnett, and we were running at the Grove Level property. And I was going up on one of the bridges, and, it's one of those things, you don't know what happened. I look back now and I think, I don't know what happened, but before I knew it, I was headed toward the ground, and I stuck my arm out to kind of break my fall, which is really the worst thing you can do a lot of times. And when I did that, it kind of jammed my arm, and it dislocated, or I believe it dislocated for some ribs. You may remember it. I was hurting for weeks. to breathe real deep. I could tell something was off, and I didn't go get them checked out, and finally it worked itself out. But yeah, it's usually when you fall and you're running, it happens before you know it.
Yes, it happens.
Well, I say that.
Very quickly.
Another time I fell, I was actually running with Lane when he was very young, and we were running on one of the busiest highways, Wallen Avenue in Dalton, and I tripped. And this was one of those where you see it coming for it felt like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I started to fall, and I would think I'm going to catch myself. Oh, I got it. Oh, no. And you start to fall again, and it takes you like 50 feet to finally hit the ground.
Yeah.
And all 1,000 cars parked at that red light saw me doing this. And my son is like finding a rock to crawl under because he's so embarrassed. So, yeah, I've had both experiences.
Yeah.
I've had that instant you're on the ground and that 5-minute fall where it feels like it's never going to end.
I've had both of those as well. And I've dislocated ribs as well. So let me assure you that putting your arm out isn't necessarily the reason why you dislocated your ribs, because for some reason I never got my arm out.
Oh, really?
And I fell and dislocated my ribs. And it was once again, I was running with one of the college girls. I mean, her and I were running side by side. We came around this turn and boom, it was on a trail. And I fell. And I just got back up and I'm like, I got to keep running. And so I ran. We were 1.5 miles away from the finish line. So I had to run the rest of the way. There's no other way to do it. So I ran with these dislocated ribs, and I left there and I went to go see our friend Scott, who popped those ribs back in place. So
and that doesn't feel good, I bet. I've never had to do that, but I hear that that's worse than the fall.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. But that wasn't nearly as bad as the time I jumped the fence and fell and dislocated ribs. So yeah, that was much worse. And I remember I was doing some half-mile repeats one time, and I was really flying. I mean, I was moving because I was coming downhill. And on this particular trail, there's a downhill, and then there's this bridge that's relatively flat. But I didn't trip on the bridge. I tripped on a little tree that somebody cut off, and there was a little nub sticking out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I flew through the air, and I bet I flew 15 feet through the air before I landed. And landed right on my hip. Oh my goodness, that hurt. I decided at that point in time a tempo run out on the road was much more attractive than the half-mile repeats I was doing. But now I run on trails more often on purpose because
you're glutton for punishment?
No, because I don't fall down as much now because I've gotten more used to it.
Okay.
So I'm better at it. And I'm better at what I call staying perpendicular to the ground.
Better be finding something wood to knock on.
Yeah. All right, scripture references. Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. No matter where we are in life's circumstances, He's always there. He's always watching over us. And the question is, why would we question a God who we know is always watching over us?
You know, I was thinking about this last night when I was going through this, and I think we believe this verse when things are good.
Yeah.
But we have a hard time believing it when things are bad. I mean, it's the same old thing that we've talked about so many times in this podcast. Why do bad things happen to good people? But we have to understand, and we've compared this to running before, that it's the pain of running is what makes you better. Mm-hmm. It's not the easy days that make you better. It's the pain, it's the hard times. We get that. But we have to remember another verse that kind of tells the other side of these verses, and it's Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for those who love God. Mm-hmm. All things, not good things, all things work together. And so God is always there. Mm-hmm. God's there in the sun, and he's there in the storm. But that's so hard for us to understand. And like I said before on this podcast, we get it in so many other areas of our life, in fitness and strength workouts or whatever it is you do. It's the trials that make you better. But why can't we get that when we're in the middle of a trial of life? Why can't we understand that God may be using that to make us better or preparing us for something bigger down the road?
Yeah, and I was listening to something the other day where they were talking about, I won't mention the church or anything else about it, but let's just say they were talking about how there are churches out there today that are justifying sin because there are things that are acceptable in today's world that maybe weren't acceptable years ago. And the trouble comes when we look at those positive words and we look at God and think everything is rosy and everything is supposed to be rosy and there is no such thing as bad things. But that's not true. And there is still such a thing as sin, and that's why we go through bad things, because of that. And we should call things what they are.
Absolutely, yeah.
2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any troubles with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Isn't that often the reason for our troubles? That we go through troubles so that we can help somebody else who goes through the same thing?
This is a tough one. But I think back to Rebecca's story from 2 weeks ago. That's emotional eating. That's not something I've ever really struggled with. Mm-hmm. I have my own things. But for a lot of people listening to that podcast, I am sure, because I know a lot of people do deal with that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that her experience in that, even though Rebecca called it what it is, it's sin. Even though she dealt with that and that was a sin in her life, there again, going back to Romans 8:28, God is taking and using that to, I have no doubt, touch the lives of people who are listening to that who may be dealing with that themselves. Mm-hmm. And you can really say that about every subject out there that's a past sin, a past struggle, a past heartache, whatever it is. God will take that pain, God will even take that sin from them and use it for His good, to enlighten people to the fact that that's not good. That's just a temporary setback in life. That's just a hard time you're going through. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train. God can use all those situations to touch the lives of other people, and that's why I love this podcast.
Yeah,
is because we talk about other people's stories, and we're able to tie that back into Scripture and be able to illustrate the fact that God can use whatever it is we're talking about to bring somebody else out of that darkness, out of that struggle, out of that sin, whatever it may be. God can use that to His good.
Yeah. We identify with people who have gone through something similar to what we're going through, right?
Sure.
We kind of look for that. I mean, we Google stuff so we can figure out how to deal with things. And so if we find somebody who has been through what we've been through, we take comfort in that. It's kind of the same way that people will ask me running questions. Well, why do they ask me running questions? Because they know that I've run a whole bunch of miles and I know a little bit about running. And so people ask me that. It's the same thing for somebody who was a drug addict and got away from that. Well, if you're in the middle of being addicted to drugs, who better to talk to than the guy that found the other side of that?
Yeah, and I mean, one of our partners, we're Partners for Christian Media, they have an arm that's called Come On, Let's Go. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they get these really radical stories of people, and then they put billboards up. There's a billboard, used to be in Chattanooga, that Come On, Let's Go put up, and it was a picture of a lady, and it said, "I wanted to kill my husband." And you think, wow, that's a crazy billboard. But you go to Come On, Let's Go, and it's this lady's testimony about where she was, where the devil had her, and where God's brought her now. And you're right, it's those phrases that people look at her. I want to commit suicide. Their goal is to be the first thing that pops up when somebody says, I want to commit suicide. Yeah. Is they think it's a story of how to commit suicide, but it's really a redemption story of where God brought somebody else, and it speaks. And I've heard a lot of their stories for things just like this. And yeah, we have to be able to recognize that Romans 8:28 is true.
Yeah.
All things.
All things. Yeah, and just a word of caution too that I think is important is it can go the opposite direction as well. We can bring people to the foot of the cross by sharing our story because it's similar to somebody else's. We can also repel people by the words that we use, by not being, just not caring what we say, and so that we got to be careful about that too.
Sure.
Romans 3:23 and 6:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and then for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. We talk about why bad things happen to good people. Well, the whole premise is off base because there are, according to the Bible, there are no good people, right? It tells us that no one is good.
What is that? Romans 3:10. There are none righteous.
Yeah, that's right.
None.
None.
That's pretty clear.
It's hard to get much clearer.
So I love how you put it that the whole statement is kind of flawed.
Yeah.
The whole question, why do bad things happen to good people? We deserve nothing less than being separated from God from eternity.
That's
so
right.
Anything better than that is a gift from God. Yeah.
Yeah. So the truth is that bad things don't happen to good people because there aren't any.
We laugh, but that's dead on. It really is.
It is.
That's a good perspective you got there.
So here's a question. How do we square a loving God with these terrible tragedies? It's a tough question because people see that, and especially people who aren't Christians, and that's what trips a lot of people up, is this whole idea that I understand that God is loving, yet I see all of these terrible things that happen in the world, and why doesn't make any sense to me? Why does that happen?
I was thinking about this last night when I was going through it, and this, maybe many people on here listen to this because I think we've talked about this before, but I love to wash my truck. I'm kind of a fanatic about. I'm the guy that's got the membership to the car wash and they lose money on me. I pay like $20 a month, and I'll go through there 5 times a week sometimes. But and this is going to sound kind of maybe off-putting at first, but the way I treat my truck is often the way that God treats us. My truck is a vessel.
Yeah.
And I drove here this morning, and had just got done raining, so my truck's got dirty. There's times where last week I was down in Claremont, Florida, and I went off-road to get to the clay loop, and got it real dirty. And there's times where I've pulled people out of ditches and had to get in the mud, and it got dirty. But the car wash is always right there. I've got a membership to the car wash.
Yeah.
So I use that truck, and it gets dirty, and sometimes it gets dented. Last week I blew a tire on the interstate. And I put that truck through a lot of tests. I get it filthy, but I know that I can come back and clean it up. Well, we are God's vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And God don't want to clean us up and park us in the garage.
Yeah.
He wants us to go into the world where it's messy, where it's raining, where it's muddy, where you might get dent and dinged and banged, but knowing He's the car wash.
Yeah.
We come back to His Word every morning. We come, we bow our head at the foot of our bed and talk to Him, and that is the body shop, the car wash. And we're not a beat up, raggedy old vessel as long as we're staying plugged into that car wash and that body shop, because that's what He designed us for. We are His vessel.
Wow.
And if we can just get that picture in our heads, that because so many times we're paralyzed, that I might get dirty there. I'm not going to go there. I don't need to go talk to that person because there's a lot of drama involved in that, and I don't want to get in that. Even though what I have to say, the God that I serve can absolutely reach in and touch that person. I don't want to get dirty.
Yeah.
That's like me parking my truck at home and saying, I'm not going out today. It's raining.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy does that sound when we put it in that perspective? But that's exactly how God uses us.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think we were going to get off on car washes and how clean I keep my truck, but
that's a great analogy.
yeah, I mean, God just kind of laid that on my heart last night, and it really convicted me, because so many times I don't want to talk to that person, or I don't want to get involved in that thing because my life might get dirty.
Yeah.
But that's okay. God told us to go into the world and make disciples, and making disciples is not always roses. It's not always clean. It's often very messy, but we're called to do it nonetheless, because car wash is waiting on us when we come back home. Mm-hmm. If we choose to go there, and we have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got here that there's two ways that we can react to these bad things that happen in our lives, and we all are prone to act one way or the other. We're kind of have that personality trait to react one way or the other. We either are like you said, we're like, God, I don't want to get my truck out because it's raining out, mm-hmm. or I might get messy, or we're like, we're going to look at it positively and go, yeah, but there's good that can come from me getting out in that rain.
Sure. And
so it's positive or it's negative. We can be terrified and scared, or we can get out there and get in the middle of it all. And if we're prone to go one direction or the other, praying about it can change us.
Sure,
it can absolutely change us.
Yeah.
And here's what I think about that. I think that when we react poorly to a situation, I've mentioned my temper on here before. Every time I get in a situation where I could let my temper get the best of me is an opportunity for me to react better the next time. And I look at that when I see bad things that happen. Each time a bad thing happens, it's an opportunity to react in a more godly and better way. So I think that.
Well, I think we've also got to understand, we've got to understand, and this is hard. This is very hard for me. You know, the Bible tells us, and I don't know the exact verse where it's at or exactly how it reads, but it's, our fight is not against the people in the world. It's against spiritual things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, usually I think a lot of times when God's given us the opportunity to make a big impact on people spiritually, that's when the devil throws his biggest wrenches at us. I mean, how many times have we come into this very room to start this podcast? Your computer wasn't picking your mic up this morning.
Yeah.
I've seen you, we talk about how you love to scream at the computer.
Yeah.
That's not the computer. That's not Apple. Apple did not say, hey, we're going to mess with Dean this week and we're going to make this mic not work. These things, and it's not coincidence. It's not a fluke. It's spiritual battles.
Yeah.
Because the evil one knows that you get really frustrated at technology, as do I. And he'll use that.
Yep.
Somebody else could come in here that just doesn't bother them. He'll use something else for them. And so I think we have to understand that when things are going bad, even though God will use them for his glory in the end, that is a spiritual thing being done.
Yeah.
And because it's the war's going on up here, way outside of us.
Yeah.
And that's hard to understand, but we've got to understand it.
Yeah.
And we should really, when things are getting really bad, we should really start looking for the opportunities, because, you know, many times these big battles come right before really big breakthroughs, or when God's really about to show off and do something, is when it gets really bad. And I love this line of questioning here.
Yeah. How about this question? Why do we think we should never have to go through tough things? Because we do. I think we think that. I think a lot of people think that. You know, unless you're really plugged into the Bible and understand that we deserve something different than we have, then everybody, the world thinks We deserve to be happy. Right? We've heard that before. We deserve to be happy. And so we're surprised when things don't go smoothly. And I think about how the world, I think back to 9/11. 9/11 is really the last time where the entire country went through something that really kind of affected all of us. We had an economic downturn in between then and the whole COVID thing, but that didn't affect everybody. It affected a lot of people, but not everybody. The COVID thing is the first thing to hit us since 2001 that really affected everybody. And
really affected the whole world.
Yeah, that's true.
And I can't remember a time when, in my lifetime, I know that something affected the whole world like that.
Yeah. And frankly, we've reacted really poorly to it.
Sure.
I mean, I've seen other times. I remember back, and I was just a kid at the time, when I remember seeing gas lines. I remember seeing lines at the gas station where cars were out into the road and lined up down the road because gas was scarce, and that was a big deal. There was real panic at that point in time. But man, I didn't see some of the stuff that I see now. I didn't see people attacking each other because of their thoughts or their beliefs or their opinions. And then, of course, in the 90s, we had such a huge boom. Things were so good in the 90s. Economically, things just went well in the 90s. And I think that all of that time where things went so well has gotten us to the point where we just expect it now, in general.
Yeah, we've become an entitled society, and when things go bad, the first thing we want to do now is blame other people. I wrote down here: growth happens when things don't go our way. Only when we look at it as an opportunity to grow. We said when we started this podcast, we were talking about Lane's race in Clermont, his second race in Clermont. His seat fell off his bike. And I remember I was so proud for Lane because, the first thing I said is I called him and I said, do you need me to send you a screwdriver? How does your seat come off your bike? And I was so proud because he could have blamed several people. He could have blamed the bike shop, because to his defense, he didn't put that back on. He said that's a screw that he's never, ever thought about. There's a lot of different ways that could have happened, most of which were probably legitimately not his fault. Now, it's his fault that he didn't check it, but he didn't cast the blame. He just said that won't happen again. He'll have a torque wrench in his bag, and he will check every screw on that bike from now on, because seat falling off during the bike is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But so many times, and that was a really proud dad moment that he just took ownership of it.
Yeah.
Because blaming anybody else is, number one, you don't really know who it was, and number two, it's not going to do any good.
Yeah, it's not going to solve the problem.
But the fact that he took ownership of it made him grow as a result of it.
Yeah.
But when you and I'm one of those dads that I don't let my kids do that.
Yeah.
We've always told these kids on race courses, if a volunteer points you the wrong way on the race course and you get lost, it's your fault. Most people would say, well, the volunteer pointed them the wrong way. I say, no, you should know the course.
Yeah.
You should know the course without the volunteers. And so every time we take ownership of stuff that didn't go our way, and we don't point fingers and blame or say that shouldn't have happened, if we just take ownership, then we can grow from it.
Yeah.
But when we cast blame and point other fingers and say, I'm whatever because of whatever, we're not growing from that. We can't grow from that. And God wants us to grow in these situations. We just talked about all these stories where growth can happen through adversity. But if we're pointing the finger in adversity, we can't grow. But if we just take ownership of it and don't blame anybody else, number one, it's incredible character. But number two, we can grow from that, and we can only grow from it when we take ownership of it.
Yeah, that's well put. I remember a time when we used to make fun of ourselves, for our traits and other things. I'll give you a good example. Yesterday, I'm running with one of the girls from the college. She's homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And we were running, and we made I don't remember what the comment was, but it was something about somebody being awkward. And she goes, and she's not even homeschooled. And, so she's kind of making fun of herself. And I remember a time when that was common. We all kind of made fun of ourselves, and self-deprecating humor was a big thing. And today, we don't want to make fun of anybody, and it's all just humor. Mm-hmm. She was just laughing at herself, not in any serious way. It didn't mean that she felt like homeschoolers were less than anybody else, or that she knew that I wouldn't think that either by that comment. And we laughed about it, and it was refreshing because we weren't taking things too seriously. And we just think we're supposed to be offended by things these days, and we're just not. We should just have some fun.
Yeah. I poke fun of you all the time.
You do, and it's awesome. I love it. How can we help those around us that are going through tough things?
I say this all the time. You got to find time to do nothing.
Yeah.
You got to find time to stop and be quiet and do nothing so that you can see. So many times we don't know what people are going through because we're so busy. It's not that we don't care.
Yeah.
But we're so busy, and I fall into this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hear about. I'm a deacon at our church, so I get the emails about who's in the hospital or whatever, and I'll get an email about somebody that I know well, that is I call a friend and I'm close to, and I'll get an email that they've been in the hospital for 2 weeks. I'm like, how did I not know that? And it's because we're so busy.
Yeah.
And this is something I've really had to work on. God put the word peace on my heart weeks or months ago now. And part of peace is finding time to have peace, to just slow down, to clear the schedule a little bit. And it's those times where you think. I picked up the phone and called you yesterday because you're going through something with your family, and God just kind of laid it on mine and Holly's heart. We were coming back, and it was just kind of quiet in the truck. We weren't even really talking, and she said, "Hey, what's going on with Dean?" And we picked up the phone and called you. But most of the time, we got the radio blaring, somebody's on their phone, we're talking, doing whatever. But it's those quiet times where God will whisper somebody's name on your heart, and we've got to find time to do nothing.
Yep. I was going to bring that very thing up, and then you brought it up. Yeah. And being there for people, I think, I remember a guy that I worked with when I was at Shaw he was a comedian. He was just a funny guy. Mm-hmm. But almost all of his humor was biblically related. And so it'd make us all feel better just because he was just being funny. But at the same time, he was kind of sharing a testimony at the same time. And it was, again, really refreshing to hear somebody do that. And I think that's a good way that we can help people through some tough things. Because, even when things were bad, I remember things would be going like just way south, right? Just the whole plant's falling apart. And he would say something that all the tension's up in the air, and he would mention think about it this way: if the rapture happens, we're not going to care. It'd be like it just took all the tension out of the air. And we all just kind of...
It made you realize how silly you sounded.
Yeah.
Being so worried.
Yeah. And then we would just relax and everything would be fine. And so I think that's something. And I think sometimes just asking, you mentioned, I've got somebody that I work with at the college who's going through really, really tough time. And when I talk with her about her situation, you can tell that it's just... She just appreciates somebody just even asking about it, and then praying, that just the tears in the eyes and things like that. It's just being there and just recognizing, just like you said. But you do have to be slowed down enough to recognize it.
Right.
Just knowing somebody cares enough to ask is a big deal. I mean, it was yesterday when you called and you asked about what you asked about. It was, it was meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
That means a lot. And then sometimes it's just being there.
Yeah.
I remember going to funeral homes when I was younger and feeling so awkward.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand why I was at the funeral home because I hadn't experienced that kind of loss myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I experienced that loss, and I realized that it's just people being there. It's all it is. They don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
It's just being there. And even if they're just there for a few minutes, it's just coming in, how you doing, a hug, a handshake, something, and then gone. And it's like, it means a lot.
Yeah.
We don't even have to say anything sometimes. We just have to be there.
Sometimes it's best just not to say anything.
Yeah.
Because I know I've kind of, you feel awkward, but I know several times where I feel like I've made things more awkward by thinking I needed to say something.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need to keep our mouth closed and just be there. Because that is the important thing is we're there.
Yep. Keeping my mouth closed. Not my forte.
If you've ever participated in any sport, you've probably met a great coach. Great coaches inspire us to do more than we ever thought possible. You can be the leader that helps others achieve things they never thought possible. You, yes, you have the ability and the opportunity to be that person. All you need is a heart to help people and the ability to follow a plan. The Run for God 5K Challenge will come ready to help you inspire those around you. The step-by-step guide will direct you how to plan, pray, and train people both physically and spiritually. You can help them become more fit in their health and in their walk with Christ. Share your passion. Go to runforgod.com to find out how to inspire others to accomplish big things.
All right, so we're back, and we're having this barbecue, right? That Saturday night after the race, which is going to be awesome.
Yep.
Which I hate to say this, barbecue is one of my favorites, but it's not very plant-based.
That's all right.
It's not at all. What's your favorite meal?
Well, I love to smoke stuff, but I'm also a cheapskate. I love steak, but I'm a cheapskate. So my favorite thing is I go to Costco and I get these really thick New York strips, the extra thick ones, and I reverse sear them because New York strip is kind of the cheaper end of the meat. It's not the ribeye, the filet, step above sirloin, but not those other expensive meats, and you can get it cheap at Costco. And I'll smoke it and I slice it into those half-inch thick. I'm getting hungry just sitting here talking about it, but that's my favorite thing to do is I cook those things to about medium rare and I slice them, and that's my favorite thing to eat.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, mine's not nearly that complicated.
What is
I
yours?
just like a good pizza.
Yeah, you've said that before.
Yeah, I'm a pizza guy,
That's
which
just wrong.
again, not very plant-based. So
It could be.
as a matter of fact, here's the interesting thing: is I've changed this plant-based diet, and it's a good thing that I look at my food as fuel because I can't think of any plant-based food that I just go, man, I just love that. I love bananas, maybe that, bananas. I'll eat 4, 5, 6 bananas a day. I mean, I love bananas. I never get tired of them. But all of my favorite foods are things that I shouldn't be eating on my diet. Barbecue pie at Red Wolf Grill. It's awesome.
See, I still have not had that.
Oh, gosh, that's awesome. Man, oh, man. All right. It's time for Dean's Thoughts. That's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. There are certain aspects of our lives where we've kind of been trained like circus elephants. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, I've got a story called Training Elephants. Let me tell a sad story. At one time, elephants began their training for the circus when they were very young. Trainers would put a chain around the elephant's leg while they were small and somewhat delicate. They would strain against the chain for a time, but eventually they realize that the effort is futile and they give up. Even after they grow into 10,000-pound animals who could pull away from nearly any restraint, They're held in place by the same small chain or rope that held them in place when they were much smaller and weaker. After all, it was no use straining against the tether. Although the methods for elephant training have become more humane, the old illustration is a good one for runners. So many of us find limits to what we can do early, and we assume that we can't do more. Even after we have spent many hours on the track, treadmill, or road, owning our conditioning into a much stronger, healthier physical specimen, we remember what we couldn't do and don't even try to go any farther or faster. Or we listen to conventional wisdom that tells us that running is bad for our knees, or that someone my age cannot run. The world limits what we do by placing artificial barriers in our way. That's why it's such fantastic news when someone does anything outside those limits. We think, that person just did something impossible, when, in reality, it was always possible. Or maybe we limit ourselves based on what people tell us. We all know them. They're the ultra safe, don't take any risks, be happy where you are people. Are you hanging out with people who place restrictions on you? We know that our best experiences are often outside our comfort zones. How can we find those adventures if we never travel outside of our comfort zones? Or maybe you've grown up in a family that doesn't wander outside of certain barriers. We know that very often highly successful people are successful because they see the full picture of what they can accomplish. Most of those people came from families that thought anything was possible. For the super successful entrepreneur, there are thousands, maybe even millions of people who could do the same thing, but they're limited by the artificial boundaries that they grew up believing were holding them in. To be sure, I'm not saying that anyone can attempt to run a sub 4-minute mile. I'm not claiming that you can do anything you wish to do. But I am saying that you could be just like that 10,000-pound elephant who believes that the small chain or rope that held them down as a baby still holds them down today. What is it that you think you might be able to do, but you're afraid to try it? Well, why not try it today? We're supposed to do new things, push the boundaries a bit maybe. If we never learned anything new, how would you get around town? You would never have learned how to drive a car. God is in the business of new things. The Bible begins with God doing a new thing when He created the heavens and the earth. And He certainly doesn't stop there. In the book of Isaiah, God is telling the Israelites what is coming. Chapter 42, beginning in verse 18, it says, "Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild animals will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches. For I will water the wilderness, rivers in the desert, to give drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself, so that they might declare my praise." God is with you when you try new things. Maybe your longest run is waiting for you to try it. Or maybe you've already stepped way outside your comfort zone. If so, good for you. But there's one more step. The last 7 words of those verses in Isaiah say, "so that they may declare my praise." It is an amazing feeling when we step outside our comfort zone and accomplish something that scared us or that we thought we could never do. But once we do it, we have to be careful to give God the praise He deserves for creating us to be able to do those hard things. What big thing can you accomplish today so that you can sing the praises of our most awesome God?
Great story, Dean.
Is there anything that you were really scared to try, but you tried it anyway? Do you remember anything?
I think Run for God's the obvious answer.
Yeah?
I mean, that was a scary step back in January 2010, but I guess to answer your question, not really.
You're not scared of much.
I was the crazy bull rider.
Yeah.
In high school. I think I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. Maybe more so when I was younger. That's kind of, I joke now. We have a rodeo that comes to town every year, and I joke every year that I'm gonna sneak around and enter that thing and crop. But I would break something nowadays, I think, and I think I recognize that, so that the reason that I don't sign up is probably a little bit of fear. But yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I like to do crazy things. I've been that way since I was a kid. I was I'll never forget, probably really, really young, probably younger than my mom would want me to say. We would go to my dad's job sites. I would always find within 5 minutes, I would be on the highest point. I would be on top of the roof, hanging off the rafters, and I can remember my mom just screaming at me from the ground, "Get down from there!" But so yeah, I love adrenaline.
Have you ever jumped out of an airplane?
I haven't done that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
I still want to do that.
Yeah.
I always say when I go skydiving, I'd like to go to the Keys.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Skydive at the Keys, because I know that's a pretty popular place. But yeah, I would love to do that.
Yeah. Well, I did that.
If anybody out there listening is a skydiver instructor, if you invite me, I will come.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
Well, for Debbie's birthday one year, we went skydiving because she had always wanted to go skydiving. So I took her skydiving. And of course, I can't stay on the ground. I've got to do it too.
Yeah. We've seen this video.
Yeah.
I've seen this video.
Yeah. And
that's funny.
I just remember once I'm up in the plane, I'm like, it was all matter of fact because this was all for her. And then once we're up in the plane and I'm strapped to this guy, and I'm thinking, what am I about to do here? And it was, I remember, it was, if you watch, you have to really watch the video close to see it. It doesn't show this part very, very much. But I'm in the front of this guy. And he kneels at the door of the plane before we go out of the plane. Well, he's going to do a backflip, which I'm very uncomfortable with to start with. I would rather do a front flip. I would be more comfortable with that. But he wants to do a backflip. Fine. It's his thing. He's controlling what's going on. But I remember him telling me, keep your head back. He would pull his head back against him, pull my head back against him. He'd grab me on the forehead, pull my head back, and I'd have my head back, and my head would automatically go boom, and I would look down. And he would pull my head back, and then I'd look down. And he did it 3 or 4 times, pulling my head back before he jumped out, because I could not look down, and it was scary for me, way scarier than I ever really thought it was going to be. Of course, once we were out of the airplane, everything was great. But anyway, I guess that's my thing.
So you're saying immediately after jumping, the fear goes away?
Within 2 seconds.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
within
crazy.
2 seconds, it just feels awesome. It just feels incredible.
Hmm.
Yeah,
There's a sermon in that
there is.
somewhere.
Yeah. I've told this more recently. The optimist in me thinks anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
That I can do anything. I said this before, I think, on this podcast. My mother told me when I was young that I could do anything. And I believed her, and so I feel like I can do just about anything. But I think that many people freak out when it comes to these things, and they freak out in the middle of things too. And I think about it from a running standpoint, where this 5K that I ran recently, where I did this record thing. We talked about it on this podcast, and I could have been scared. When I hit that first mile and I was way too fast. I could have said,
It's over.
I've blown it. Doggone it. But I didn't. Instead, I looked on the positive side of that. And the right outlook on anything that you're scared of can help and can get you to the right place.
But how many times do we see that? We work with young people and running and whatever. And how many times have we know how to look at a run and, kind of tell, okay, this person can run a X. Mm-hmm. But they can't run it until they believe they can run it.
That's right.
With young people, so many times they just think they can. I'm thinking of one young lady on the cross country team in particular. She, her biggest problem is her. Mm-hmm. It's not her legs. She's an incredibly fast young lady, but so many times it's the self-deprecating. It's the I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, the numbers say you can, but
Yeah.
But it's the fear of trying to push to that. And I've seen her have a couple breakthroughs, and it's like, oh, I can do that. And you're like, we've been saying you can do that. But, yeah, we just get in our own way sometimes.
Yeah, we do. While you are working hard to keep your body in shape physically, the music you listen to while you run can help keep you in shape spiritually. We have partnered with J Radio to put together a group of running playlists by Mitchell, Lane, Holly, me, and others that you hear on the Run Club podcast. Plus, you can listen to a playlist put together by members of Run Club just like you. Check out the whole station of Run for God playlist now at jradio.com and in the J Radio app. All right, we're back, and I don't know, did you watch the indoor track championships? You're not a big track junkie.
I did. I saw that you mentioned Davis in here. I picked up on that, but no, I'm not a big track guy. They're too long.
Those Oregon guys.
They take too much time.
those Oregon men, I mean, they were just absolutely dominant, particularly in the distance events, but other things as well. It's interesting to watch these teams that they just keep loading back up. We see it in college football too with the Alabamas and people like that. They just load back up. Cole Hocker ran 3:53 for the mile.
I saw that
in a championship race.
Yeah, which is unusual.
Yeah, it's very unusual.
Explain why that is.
Well, because I hear this all the time. People run in the Olympics. They don't run a fast time for the win. They win in the Olympics, and people think, well, that was disappointing. No, it wasn't. It's the race. It's the race itself, because there's a few reasons why championship races are typically a little bit slower. One is that only the place counts. That's all that matters is the place. So it's all tactical. Nobody cares that you ran this time. What they care about, did you win the gold medal? They also have to go in track meets. They go through rounds to get to a championship final. So let's say we're talking about the 1,500 meters. Well, you've already run 2 or 3 1,500 meter races before that final. So, and maybe you're in more than one event, so you're tired by the time you get to that event as well. So that's part of it. A lot of times they'll run just fast enough to get by in some of these rounds and some of these races, and then they do the same thing in the final as well. Then
that could kind of explain why so many records were broken in 2020.
Yeah,
because there were no races, and people were going out with the singular goal of they didn't have a first place or a second place. All they had was a record to break.
Yep.
And so that just kind of hit me just now that maybe that explains 2020 a little bit, why so many records fell.
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I think that's part of it. And racing is just different than running a fast time. Putting yourself in the right position on the track tactically is important, and sometimes that means running out in the second lane. Well, then you're running longer. You're obviously not going to run as fast a time. Paces speed up or they slow down. Nobody wants to take the lead, so they go out and that first lap is really slow. That happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some Olympic races where they go out in the first lap and I'm screaming at the TV, I can run faster than that. Because it's so, you're right, nobody wants to take that lead. But then as soon as that person takes the lead, then it's on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sometimes I am that person that's like, well, that was a letdown. But I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But
this is all why when you see world records in the Olympics, what are the events that you normally see it in? Well, it's the sprinting events.
Right.
It's the 100 meters. It's the long jump. It's these events where it's just pure speed, because there's only one way to run those,
right?
And that's all out. Yeah. Now, during some of the rounds, there's some of those really fast guys. They can kind of let up, but for the most part, that's 10 seconds of fury, and so you're more likely to see world records in sprints because of that.
Sure.
So, yeah, that Oregon team, they won the distance medley relay, ran crazy fast, and a lot of people don't know what the distance medley relay is. So the distance medley relay is where you have four guys, four ladies. The first leg runs 1,200 meters, which is 3 laps on the track. The second leg runs a 400 meters on the track, which is one lap. And then the third leg runs 800 meters, and then the last one runs 1,600 meters, or it's pretty close to a mile. And the distance medley relay is always fun to watch because it's fun to watch that change of pace as somebody else gets the baton.
So do you have is there a reason why they did it? Because you go 3 laps, 1 lap, 2 laps, 4 laps. Why did they pick that order? Is there a reason behind that?
Well, that's a very interesting story. I got myself in trouble in a track meet here a few years ago. When I first started coaching track, when I was in high school, the 800 meters was first, not the 1,200. So it was 800, 400, 1,200, 1,600 back then. And I was running the 800 meter leg, so I knew it was the first leg. Anyway, so we get into this meet. Well, I thought the 800 meter leg was first. I assumed it was still the same. So we had a girl that was going to run the 800 meters in the first leg.
I remember this.
And after she started, we realized, oh no, this is the 1,200 meter leg. We had to tell her as she was running, sorry, you're going to have to run some more. That was rough.
Who was that running? I remember that.
It was Morgan.
Yeah,
it was Morgan. Yeah. Anyway, she was a good sport about it.
Yeah.
A guy we know, you mentioned Davis Bove. He ran 3:58 indoors now, which is crazy.
As a sophomore.
Crazy fast. And he finished last in his heat.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable that you can run that fast. What's interesting is the other heat, and this goes back to what we were talking about before about championship races. In the other heat, 4:05 won the other heat because they all just kind of laid back, and it came down to the last couple of laps in the kick. So,
wow,
yeah. So, I know track meet can be a little boring, especially with the younger ages, and that's been your experience as you've seen a lot of these middle school and high school meets, and they're not always good.
It just, we have joked. You and I'm convinced, could go put on a track meet and be done and gone and cleaned up, eating dinner within 3 hours.
Yeah, no question about it.
But some of we'll get there at 4, and I know a few track meets where they had to turn on the lights at 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
5 hours later.
Yeah,
and but I get it. They're relying on volunteers and it's teachers, and I get it. But it's still, it's like watching paint dry sometimes. It's like going to a swim meet. Same thing.
Yeah,
they're so long.
Yeah. But I love track and field. I love to be around. I love the rawness of track and field.
Yeah.
It's the me against you thing where that's all it is. Of course, the new shoe technology is kind of throwing a monkey wrench into things, so there is something more to it than there used to be.
Have you seen Lane's foot? Did he call you about the back of his feet? He got the new, what's the new shoe he got? The new race shoes he got? The Nike.
I don't remember which one it is. It's
one of the ones that's in question.
The next percent or whatever.
But he runs triathlon. You don't wear socks.
Yeah.
And his heels are, after the race in Sarasota, it was his third race in those. The back heel and even coming down the shoe is red. It completely wore the hide off. He's trying to get them healed up right now. But I don't know if he's going to race in them anymore because there's something the way they're designed on the back. 3 other athletes at the race wearing the same shoes were also bloody.
Same problem.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's something abrasive in the material on the back of those that's just not working for triathletes because, triathletes don't wear socks.
Yeah.
Most times you're wearing socks wearing those shoes.
Right.
And so there may be a design flaw there, which, because it's 4 different people at this race in Sarasota come through with the same exact shoes, and the back of them were red from the blood.
That tells you there's an issue there for sure. Wow, that's very interesting. All right, how about this week's trivia question? This one is a simple one. What is the largest muscle in your body?
So I'm pretty sure I know this one. Is it a trick question or is...
No.
Okay, then I think I know it.
Yeah. All right. Very good.
Can I can't enter.
You can't.
Okay.
No, you can't enter.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was going to call Gay and tell her to send my Run for God package. So if you know the question, if you know the answer to this.
Now you're just assuming you know the answer.
I'm 99.9% sure I know the answer to this. But if you are also 99.9% sure, be the first one to email dean@runforgod.com. Not customer service, not Facebook Messenger. Email dean@runforgod.com, and we'll send you a Run Club gift box that has t-shirt, coffee mug, bumper sticker, copy of devotions, just all kind of Run Club goodies in there. We'll send that to you free of charge.
That'd be awesome. So here's why running is so awesome. Running is pretty time efficient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about other sports like cycling. Cycling takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only you may live in an area, I live in an area where I can just ride out of my driveway and be on a good place to ride, and you do too. But some people, you live in the city, you got to go somewhere.
Well, and plus it's about a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio.
Yeah.
To get the same amount of fitness. If you run 5 miles, you got to run. I mean, you got to bike 20, 25, 30 miles to get that same amount of benefit. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Swimming, you know, you got to go to a pool.
Right.
If you're a swimmer. I mean, now maybe you've got like a big swimming pool in your backyard, but probably not.
Probably not that long.
Nope. You know, if you're a gym rat, you got to go to the gym. Now there are some things you can do in your house, and they have all this fancy equipment these days with these mirrors and other things where you can do things in your house. But nothing beats being able to go out and run and watch the scenery go by. And
I mean, and think about it. If you're doing the 5K challenge or the marathon challenge with us right now, I mean, I go out and I start my workout, and in 30 minutes, I'm completely done with the workout, start to finish, and I can do it right out my front door. So, yeah, there's just no more efficient workout that you can do than that.
That's less than 2 hours a week
to
get that done.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, a 2-hour bike ride won't do what one of those runs will do.
Right.
Man. All right. Motivational thought of the week comes from Philip Hagan from the Mayo Clinic, which we've become very familiar with lately. Any healthy choice you make, no matter how small, makes a difference. The more healthy habits you add, the more steps you take toward better health. I remember Spider saying basically this same thing, just in a different way, when he was on our podcast, because it just change one thing. Change one thing today.
Well, it's usually more sustainable doing it that way. You know, like a diet. People think they got to do this insanely crazy thing to get their diet under control, when really just take out soft drinks.
Yeah.
Do one thing at a time, and it's so much more sustainable than trying to do this crazy something you've never done and you change everything about your diet. Many times that's just not sustainable.
Yeah, you're right. You don't have to make major changes to make a difference. But one thing you do have to do is you do have to make changes.
Yeah.
So small changes. You take three small changes, that equals a big change.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look at it. All right. Make sure you're sharing Run Club with others. We so appreciate you being here. Make sure that you've reviewed our podcast and you're spreading the word. Go ahead and share that podcast with somebody, particularly the ones you like, the ones that are really good. Spread those around. All right, everybody, you're doing great. Keep up the training. If you're on this couch to marathon journey with us, keep it up. Just like that post earlier that we talked about. It's one step today, another step tomorrow. There's a finish line coming in less than a year from now.
Yep.
So keep that support up. Keep glorifying God in your running and all that you do. Now may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.